I recently asked you guys which player you are the most worried about on your roster, and in today's video, we're going to talk about some potential ticking time bombs and how you can avoid them to start your fantasy football season here in week 1. Lastly, I'm committing this entire season to guaranteed replies to the first 3 comments on every video, so make sure you turn your notifications on and subscribe. Starting off with Quinshon Judkins. My panic level is an 8 out of 10. Things are getting incredibly difficult to manage with Quinshon Judkins. We're going to talk about best case and worst case scenario. We're going to play good cop and bad cop. You ready for this? Okay, so first of all, no matter when Judkins signs, the timeline is an absolute mess. So even if you're watching this tomorrow and he has signed, things are going to be incredibly difficult to begin his career. Let's talk about it. But first, why isn't he signed? Well, we're all asking that question as the charges were dropped on August 15th. But part of this has to do with the NFL's investigation. They need to figure out if they need to actually suspend him themselves. And part of it has to do with the contract itself. Now, Joe Thomas, historic, tackle for the Browns, he had this to say on the Dogs podcast. Check this out.
I get the sense that maybe the agent is just trying to argue for a few last minute things to try to boost himself so that when he's recruiting the next Quinshon Judkins, he can say, oh, look what I got, Quinshon, I fleeced the Browns and I was able to get so much more than he deserved.
Now, I'll be honest, love Joe Thomas, one of the best of all time, but I honestly don't think he has any true insider information on this situation. But he is someone who's closest to the Browns that had something to say. Let's play good cop, bad cop. Good cop. This is the best case scenario. He signed before the NFL season, which he's going to have to do it soon. He gets no suspension. He gets time in practice and he integrates well. However, even in the best case scenario, he's still going to split work for the early part of the season at minimum, and he will be in a bad offense. Because keep in mind, this team drafted another rookie, Dylan Sampson, who's been there the entire offseason. They also brought back Jerome Ford, and Judkins has not been a part of camp, meetings. The vast majority of the offseason, he hasn't really been there. And this team is currently projected to score the least amount of points per game this year at 17.7. So what is the best case scenario even worth in fantasy football? Well, let's play bad cop. This is the worst case scenario. He doesn't sign before the season. The NFL's investigation finds a reason to suspend him even if it's just 2 or 3 games. It takes a long time for him to integrate into this offense. Ford and Sampson have a firm, grip on that role. And again, he's splitting work in a terrible offense. So look, at this point, I have him in the same tier as some of my favorite handcuffs / low-end starters like the Trey Bensons, the Scadaboos, the Dobbins, the Javonte Williams. If, of all these names, he's clearly the most talented. Clearly the most respected as a player in the NFL. But man, things are just disgusting. If you had Judkins, I'm sorry. Things are really awful. You may be looking to trade him if you have a chance to do so. All right, Jayden Reed, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. Another guy, not all these guys are big panics for me, but Jayden Reed is a 9 out of 10 panic for me. If you have him on your roster, I would suggest to try and move him, but we'll talk about what that would look like. This situation in Green Bay is an absolute mess, so let's break it down. So the injury Jayden Reed has is a Jones fracture. He was in a boot late July, early August. However, his injury lingered on longer than most probably predicted. Now, there's more to this story in Green Bay because clearly the team doctors are in Green Bay and Jayden Reed are not on the same page about how to attack this injury. Jason Wild of ESPN Wisconsin released an article and essentially said, number 1, oftentimes an injury like this, if severe enough, requires a surgery to fix it. Number 2, Reed has claimed himself he is not 100% and he wants to play through the injury. Number 3, when head coach Matt LaFleur was asked if he thinks Reed can work without restrictions, he said, I hope so. Maybe. I hope so. Number 4, he's been told that this is not the type of injury most would play on, and his reply was, well, that's what comes with it sometimes. Is he being a dog, or is that a red flag? He was back at practice recently, but man, this is an injury that needs either time or surgery to heal, and he's not giving it either. The following players have had this injury in the past at different severities. Julio Jones, twice, was a problem. Derrick Henry, he missed the entire second half of the season. Greg Olsen, his injury required surgery and it pretty much ended his career. Deebo Samuel years ago missed all of camp. He played, he was pretty much fine. Travis Etienne had a similar injury in his rookie season. He had to end his entire season with a season-ending injury to repair it via surgery. Our friend Jeff Mueller, sports doctor on Twitter, had this to say. He says, if this info is true, this is a high-risk scenario turning poorly very quickly, including risk that the fracture doesn't heal and eventually requires surgery. Then he followed it up by listing wide receivers who have had surgery due to a Jones fracture, right? So Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, Sammy Watkins, Debo, Van Jefferson, Dez Bryant, James Washington. And then he says wide receivers who were able to play through the injury, without a surgery, he couldn't think of a single name. Like I said, this is an absolute mess. Keep in mind, he's not even out there in 2 wide receiver sets. Golden and Dobbs are playing ahead of him. Previously, I would have had him at the top of this tier on your screen now, but I'm probably going to have him at the bottom. I'd rather take a shot on Kupp, Coleman, Higgins, Godwin. You do what you think is best for you with that information, but I would be looking to trade him, see what the highest paying bidder in your league can get for him. All right, Jalen Coker here. Unfortunately, this is a 6 out of 10 because we were all so excited. Where the cokeheads at? We were so excited to see Jalen Coker. We had about 24 hours to celebrate of him being named the starting slot wide receiver. Then out of nowhere, Coker gets placed on IR, and in a corresponding move, the Panthers signed Hunter Renfrow back to the active roster. It's reported that Coker is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. He pulled his quad running a deep ball on one-on-one. So the bad news is Coker can miss 4 to 6 weeks. He has a history of lower body tissue issues, but I'm not Dr. Seuss. But there is also no chance for him to build hype at the beginning of the year and increase value on your roster. Here's the good news. You can place him on your IR for free and keep him there. You can go to the waiver wire, pick up another high upside stash, so at least you have flexibility on your roster. For example, I drafted Coker in my home league literally hours before this was announced, so I picked up Chris Rodriguez after moving Coker to the IR. But here's a video I released a couple days ago about players that you should stash before week 1. Go check that out if you don't have Rodriguez as an option. Now, with news rapidly changing, it's just gonna get worse throughout every single week of the NFL. Things are gonna change rapidly, I'm telling y'all. And the 2025 season pass is a must-have for your fantasy football season. $34 one-time purchase when you use a promo code LAND. You can check out the pinned comment. It's about $2 per week for the entire season, and you're going to get season-long access to my weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, updated with all the latest injuries, all premium tools on the Flock site, all access, as well as some start, sit, and trade question vouchers that you can ask on the live stream. I'll be helping you with your fantasy team. All right, Rashee Rice. Okay, so panic level is a 3 out of 10, but let me just explain what I mean by that, okay? Well, we finally got the update we were all looking for. It's a 6-game suspension. 3 out of 10 is a panic because we know exactly how to handle this situation. The bad, you won't have him for 7 out of the first 10 weeks of the year, when you include the bye week that they have in week 10. So you'll have him week 7, 8, 9 versus the Raiders, Commanders, and Bills. The other issue here is you will have zero flexibility with him on the waiver wire. Think about it. It's the opposite of Jalen Coker. Because Coker is on the PUP, you have the ability, or the IR rather, you have the ability to kind of move your roster around on the waiver wire. Rice is going to stay on your bench, completely limits your movability, with transactions. Now, here's the good news. When he returns, he has league-winning upside. Last week in the first 3 weeks of the season, Rice had higher averages than Jefferson and Lamb in fantasy points, targets, target share, receptions, and receiving yards. Also, you know exactly what the terms will be for Rashee Rice right now, so you can plan ahead. Have these non-sexy players that can be placeholders for Rashee Rice, whether you have to go trade for them for nothing or pick them up off the waiver wire or draft them late in your drafts. Names like Christian Kirk, who could be this year's Keenan Allen. Names like Keenan Allen, who could be this year's Keenan Allen, the old veteran who produces. Khalil Shakir, Pittman, Kupp, Mooney, Tillman, these non-sexy names that can be placeholders until Rashee Rice is ready to go. You just need to win a couple games. You just need to get to 500 until week 7 gets here. However, if you're a Rashee Rice team, what you shouldn't do is also have Jordan Addison. That is 10 games suspended in the first 6 weeks amongst 2 wide receivers. So maybe you move Jordan Addison for a more reliable name. So you can take on the Rashee Rice risk. Now, everything is defined. You can easily move through the season with a plan. All right, Joe Mixon, panic level 10 out of 10. He was on last week's version of this video. He was a 9 out of 10. We're now at full beans here, 10 out of 10 panic. It's just further getting worse and worse for Joe Mixon. I mean, last week we talked about how the ever-reliable Jeff Mueller said he was out. Mixon was off his draft board entirely because of the information that he had. We later found out that a group in Tampa was working with Joe Mixon and, talking specifically about this difficult injury he was trying to get through. And then later last week, he was placed on the NFI list, which will pretty much guarantee him out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Then the GM, Nick Caserio, was asked about Mixon, and basically they were like, hey, you think he's going to come back after 4 weeks? And Nick said, we'll see. We're just going to take it day by day. So completely non-committal about when he would be available in 2025 to begin. So look, let's be 100% clear here. Joe Mixon, by far the best running back on this team. It's not even close. But when the GM isn't even committing to him playing in 2025, we all have to drastically lower our expectations. However, at least this is not a suspension. You can put him on the IR again and have the flexibility throughout your waiver wire. I would prefer all these running backs over Mixon at this point. Names like Charbonnet, Eckler, Bill Krosky, Jordan Mason, Benson, Scadaboo, Javonte Dobbins, and Jalen Warren. Things are just really difficult to manage there in Houston. All right, let's talk about Jakobi Meyers. My panic level, a 2 out of 10. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is woosah, okay? Just calm down if you got Jakobi Meyers. Things are going to be okay. This video is intended to talk about all the latest news and how we should react to it. Now, the main reason people are worried about Meyers is the trade request last week. However, since that time, Meyers has stayed with the team and practice, and the GM actually recently spoke on the situation. It sounds highly likely, in my opinion, that the two are going to figure things out. Check out what he had to say.
You know, I'm excited that he's here and he's a Raider and he's out in the field working hard today, and I've not seen him do anything but that.
At this point, I would be very surprised if Meyers isn't starting week 1. Yes, there's more competition this year, you know, with Amari Cooper being there, Dante Thornton. We've also got Jack Besh, but there's better quarterback play as well. Now, news is always changing. So, you know, if a report comes out the day that this video is released, and I'm trying to do everything in the closest timeline here for you guys, that he's going to hold out, not going to play, that changes everything, okay? All right, let's talk about a rookie running back here, Kaleb Johnson. So you have Kaleb Johnson on your team. You've been seeing the reports about Travion Henderson all offseason and how great he looks and how excited they are to use him. And same with Demarion Hampton. And with Kaleb Johnson, it's been not crickets, but it's not been that same hype. But if you drafted Kaleb Johnson, you should have had low expectations early on. That's why our panic is a 2 out of 10. We are not concerned because you should have drafted him with the same expectations that it will take him a while to get a role in this offense. He wasn't a first-round pick. He was a third-round pick. So the fact that he's currently RB3 on the Steelers' website, their depth chart, that should not concern you. This is a formality, and over the course of the first couple weeks, we will see him earn more and more work. And I'm begging you, please don't forget that Jalen Warren has never been a workhorse running back in his career. In fact, his career high in rushing attempts per game is 8.8. That was in 2023. And career high in rushing yards per game is 46, again, in 2023. This is not a guy that their offense has ever said that they want to build through and trust, you know, week in, week out. And behind Warren, ahead of Kaleb, is Kenneth Gainwell, who has proven even less. He has a career high of 5.3 rushing attempts per game and 22.8 rushing yards per game. And this team has been a run-heavy team for a while. They've been top 10 in rushing attempts per game in each of the last 3 seasons. 6th last year, 9th the year before, and 10th the year before that. So I understand you're probably, as a Kaleb Johnson owner, not hearing everything that you want to hear right now. You might be frustrated that you're not hearing more hype and you're not seeing him at the top of the depth chart. But just calm down for a second. Woosah, take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. Things are going to be okay for Kaleb Johnson. You're going to love having him on your roster around weeks 4, 5, 6, 7 onwards. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am hyped for week 1. I'm actually working on my week 1 rankings right now. We're about to record some content for you guys. And I just set my lineup for FastDraft's Quick 6 Super Slam. This contest is super simple, guys. All you have to do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks. Running back, wide receiver, tight end. All you have to do is choose 6 of those guys to fill your lineup. Can be any player. Then you've got the boosters on the left side of the screen there, so how many bonus points you want them to get. So in my lineup this week, I'm starting McCaffrey versus the Seahawks, Bijan versus the Bucks. We've got a little Jahmyr Gibbs versus Green Bay, and Chase Brown versus the Cleveland Browns. I think he's going to get a ton of work, and I think they should be up in that game. It's a $10 entry, so all you have to do is have the best lineup, and then you could win some money this week from week 1. Download the FastDraft app if you haven't yet. Use my promo code LAND. You can check out the pinned comment. I'm going to match your deposit up to $50, and then you're going to get my week 1 rankings for free. So definitely check out the link in the pinned comment. All right, let's talk about Breece Hall. We've talked about Breece Hall a lot on this channel. My panic level has risen, you know, week in and week out. 6 out of 10. I'm I would say, very concerned. And I just think we're going to find everything out in week 1. We're going to find out what's actually true. We've talked about this before, but if you haven't heard me talk about Breece Hall all offseason, this entire staff and Breece Hall have not been on the same page. Breece has said things like, I know they didn't choose me. You know, it's not the staff that brought me in. I have to prove myself. I might have to prove myself for free agency next year. Earlier in the offseason, Aaron Glenn, new head coach, talked about, yeah, Breece is in a good place, but we got 3 running backs we want to use. They kind of want to emulate what was happening in Detroit. Now, Breece Hall's response to that was, I'm a 3-down back, basically saying like, hey, they're not going to use me like a workhorse, but I am a workhorse. Most recent reports suggest Breece wasn't the best running back in camp, according to some people. Braylon Allen is getting a lot of hype, being called, more of a 1A, 1B situation, one of the stars of camp. His role is going to be, very significant. And then in week 1 and 2 of the preseason action, the words were followed up with action. Because in week 1, Breece only had 50% of the snaps. I mean, they were using Allen and Isaiah Davis, exactly what the coaching staff said they wanted to do. Then in week 2, again, without Isaiah Davis, keep that in mind, Breece Hall only got 61% of the snaps. Without Isaiah Davis, by the way. He wasn't available. The other strange part is that Breece Hall had 0 out of 5 third down snaps, so that's difficult for pass catching. And in the first 2 weeks combined, Breece only had 57% of the snaps, 62% of the rushing attempt share, and 11% target share. Last year, Breece was dominant in a couple factors like snap share, targets, and receiving yards amongst running backs, and he was also dominant on the goal line. He was their, goal line running back, if you will. So if all that isn't going to be available to him, it's going to be pretty difficult to see where the fantasy points are going to come from a bad offense. I don't typically let, all the hype and the drumbeat get to me unless it's consistent and it's loud and it's never ending. And that is the case with this Breece Hall situation. Now, here are some honorable mentions that I'm a little bit concerned about. Devon Achane, he should be healthy, but there is, potential risk of re-injury with how explosive he is as a player. Najee Harris, there's no real work to start this offseason. He hasn't really gotten into the building. What will he look like? Tajay Spears, put him on your IR. If you don't have space, you could cut him if you wanted to, if you need flexibility on your waiver wire. Jordan Addison, does the Adam Thielen addition impact him at all? It's already a crowded room. I don't think so. I think he'll be fine. Chris Olave, projected bad offense, bad quarterback room. I'm so nervous to watch Spencer Rattler and the Saints in week 1. I have Olave in a couple leagues because he fell, but man, it's concerning. The good news is Olave is going to play a lot out of the slot. So that will, I think calm a lot of our nerves. So get a lot more layups in this offense, hopefully. But guys, I appreciate you so much for watching the video. Do me a favor. Hit that like button and show some love. Subscribe if you like the content. And tomorrow we will be dropping our first start sit video of the year. So definitely turn on those notifications. And I appreciate you watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Nothing but love. Draft with me every night this week on the FastDraft app, where there are thousands of dollars to be won weekly. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That's up to 10 free entries on us. And when you finish your first DFS contest, I'll send you my weekly rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.